right. We'd like to call to order this regular meeting of LAFCO. I don't know what the date is today. For Wednesday, April 19th at 9 a.m. Commissioner Zaragoza, would you lead us in the pledge?
I'll be happy to. Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, can we please get a roll call?
Commissioner Crosswhite,
Here.
Commissioner Parvin,
Here.
Commissioner Zaragoza,
Here.
Commissioner Hassan, Commissioner Ross.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. All right, agenda review. Are there any items that staff or any of the commissioners would like to move around?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, that brings us to public comment. Members of the public may comment on any item that does not appear on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of LAFCO. Have we received any public comments?
We have Dan Trugan, who has his hand raised. I'm not exactly sure if he's speaking under public comment. I will.
Let's see. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Again, for the record, my name is Dan Drugan. I am the Manager of Resources with Cayugas Municipal Water District. I'm here today at the LAFCO meeting to actually acknowledge that we have, working with the Metropolitan Water District on a support letter. As you may know, the legislative session is in full swing right now. And this letter is to support a budget request ask of $50 million for the state budget to improve state water project dependent area access with infrastructure improvements. So we have a copy of this support letter that we were working with our local retail partners and other folks on. We're going to send this letter to LAFCO staff, and we'd love to work with them to see if we can get them on a coalition letter that would support this budget ask as well. So very important that the $50 million request is well supported in our Southeast Ventura County area, as we did have to navigate some of the most severe water restrictions that we put into place last year. So it would be great to have this commission's support on that and to work with LAFCO staff. So appreciate it. That concludes my public comment.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
We do not.
He's got to come up.
Needs to fill out a speaker card.
If you're wanting to speak, if you could come up and speak, and then you could fill out a speaker card for the clerk. Okay. All right. If there are no other public comments?
I just want to say, with Diego's right now, we really could use support with those, with that letter for Metropolitan Water District, for the legislature. It would really help bring additional infrastructure monies to the region that would help our county greatly. So, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may, essentially the request from Cayugas is that the commission offer its support of this $50 million grant for infrastructure that's going to benefit Cayugas. We were made aware of this too late to put it on the agenda for consideration at the meeting. That's why it is coming up during public comments. I did discuss this issue with Jeff yesterday evening, and there is a provision that would allow the commission to provide some type of direction at least, and I'll let Jeff answer those questions.
Yeah, so as Kai mentioned, that this item came up after the agenda was posted under the Brown Act. There's an exception which allows your commission to take action on urgency matters when a matter has arisen after the posting of the agenda and when immediate action is needed. And so if we could get a little clarification on the actual direction that would be needed here. But in my opinion, it would be appropriate if your board wanted to direct staff to lend LAFCO support to the Callegas state funding request, that would be appropriate. It would require two steps. The first step would require a 2/3 vote by your commission finding that the matter did arise after the posting of the agenda and that immediate action is needed. And so if that first motion got 2/3 vote or more, then your commission could act on the underlying item, which again would be to lend LAFCO support to the Callegas funding request. And just for the record, Government Code Section 54954.2B2 contains, what I like to call the urgency exception that your board is authorized to act under here if you choose.
Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to bring up the, how do you say, it? The urgency request.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, or we can do a roll, vote, we can do it, all those in favor, right? Because none of our commissioners are online.
Yes.
Okay, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Now, we need a motion to direct staff to develop a support letter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you like to?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, that brings us to the consent calendar. Are there any items on the consent calendar that anyone would like to pull for further discussion? Seeing none, I would.
Move approval?
So approval by Zaragoza. Do we have a second? And was that by Ross? Okay, second by Ross. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent calendar passes unanimously. That brings us to our first public hearing, which is the LAFCO fee schedule for fiscal year 23-24. So I will open the public hearing, and we will take the staff presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair Crosswhite. The recommendation is that the commission determine that updates to the current LAFCO fee schedule are necessary. Specifically, we are recommending an increase to the hourly composite rate that staff charges applicants to process applications. This composite rate is currently at $165 an hour, and it has always kind of been tied, not specifically, but very close to the composite rate charged by staff planners with county planning, which that hourly rate is currently $168 and some change. The county is going to be proposing an increase to that hourly rate of over $12. So to keep the LAFCO hourly rates on par with the county's rates, we are recommending that they be increased $10 an hour to $175. This again is to reflect just the increase in overall costs and overhead to process these applications. So that's the recommendation, and that concludes my presentation.
All right. Are there any questions for staff on the presentation? If not, I will ask for public comment.
I don't have questions, but I have a comment.
All right,
I
well-
think it's overdue, so.
All right, we'll get to discussion in a little bit. It is a public hearing, so if there's any members of the public who want to speak on this item, this would be the time to speak on the fee schedule. I don't see. All right, I don't see any of the members of the public approaching that they want to speak on this item. So with that, I will close the public hearing, and we can have discussion and debate on the item. Commissioner Hassan? Or you had your comment? Any other comments on this item?
We've had inflation hit everywhere. Everything's going up, cost of living's going up, cost of doing business is going up. So it's probably time we increase that rate.
I think the increase seems reasonable.
Yep.
All right.
Need a motion for this?
Yes,
Motion approval of this item?
Second,
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So that brings us to the LAFCO proposed budget for fiscal year 23-24. So with that, I will open the public hearing and we will hear the staff presentation.
Again, thank you, Vice Chair Crosswhite. Okay, this is agenda item number 11. It is the recommended proposed budget for fiscal year 23-24. LAFCO law does require, actually directs each commission to adopt a proposed budget by May 1st of every year. And it also directs LAFCO to adopt a final budget by June 15th. This, of course, is the recommended proposed budget, and we plan to bring the recommended final budget back for commission's consideration at next month's meeting. Therefore, it'll be prior to the June 15th deadline. I want to talk a little bit about the current, is there a way to get that down? Anyway, there we go. Just want to talk a little bit about the current fiscal year, a little bit of a review of it, and I'll start with expenditures. So the LAFCO budget for expenditures is divided into three categories. These are total salaries and benefits, total services and supplies, and then contingencies. So for the current year's adopted budget, the commission anticipated for salaries and benefits $705,650, $155,200 for total services and supplies, a little over $43,000 for contingencies, for a total of almost $904,000. In January, the commission adjusted the budget and moved $21,000 out of contingencies into total salaries and benefits. This reflected an unanticipated general salary increase for county staff under the management agreement with the county. So that increased the total salaries and supplies as adjusted up to $726,650, and of course reduced contingencies by the same amount. So we are projecting expending $726,650 for salaries. That will result in zero savings. We're anticipating expending $137,000 for services and supplies, which will leave us a savings of $18,200. And we don't plan on spending any more contingencies for a savings of a little over $22,000. So we are projecting expending approximately $863,650 for a total savings of $40,242. Regarding revenue. So the adopted budget for this year, we anticipated $1,500 in interest earnings, $6,000 from other revenue, this is from application fees, $769,392 from our funding agencies. These, of course, are the county, the 10 cities, and the 30 independent special districts, for a total revenue of almost $777,000. We are projecting interest earnings of $8,000, which is significantly higher than what we thought it was going to be. So there's a surplus there of $6,500. We anticipate receiving $20,000 in revenue, again, significantly higher than we anticipated initially, for a surplus of $14,000. The adopted and projected funding from other governmental agencies is the same, so there's a zero surplus there. So as far as total revenue, we are looking at an estimated surplus of $20,500 at the end of this fiscal year. So when the projected expenditure savings and the revenue surplus are added together, we're looking at a projected fund balance at the end of this fiscal year of $60,742. Now, LAFCO law does allow for the commission to use that fund balance to help fund a subsequent budget, next year's budget, and we are recommending that the commission do that, as I'll talk about here in just a moment. So onto the proposed budget for next fiscal year. Again, salary and employee benefits, services and supplies, contingencies. So we are recommending a budget with total expenditures, all three categories, from $903,892 this year to a recommended proposed $974,242. This is an increase of a little over $70,000 or 7.8%. And I'll break this down here for a little bit. We'll start with expenditures for salaries and benefits. We are recommending an increase from the adjusted $726,650 to $751,450, which is an increase of $24,800 or 3.4%. The reasons for this increase is primarily for regular salaries, which are recommended, proposed to increase $29,549 or 6.2%. This is to cover anticipated salary increases to be awarded during the fiscal year, including merit increases for the deputy executive officer, as well as the office manager and clerk. And then also to cover a 4% general salary increase, which is to be effective December of this year. Again, the Board of Supervisors approved those general salary increases December of last year. The increase is somewhat offset by a pretty significant reduction to retirement contributions of $11,383. Regarding expenditures for services and supplies, we are looking at increasing the current $155,200 to $176,400. This is an increase of a little over $21,000 or about 13.7%. Now, the reason for this increase is primarily due to cost allocation plan charges and other professional and specialized services. So regarding the cost allocation plan charges, these are set by the county. They're outside of LAFCO's control. And these are for services that are provided by the county's general services agency, the auditor controller, the county CEO, or, such as human resources and others. Now, the commission received a credit this year of $8,000 because the commission had overpaid in the previous two fiscal years. So that technically would have been revenue. But this year, or for next year, they're anticipating $7,000 in costs. So the difference really is about $15,000, though it's kind of misleading because that $8,000 was revenue. And regarding the other professionalized services, this increase of $12,500 is due to an unforeseen increase in the cost of the audits. If you'll recall, when the commission approved a contract with the auditor, it was over $3,000 higher than it was the previous years. And then there was another anticipated increase of about $1,000 for the audit to comply with a new state requirement. Again, that was unforeseen as well. And this also includes $12,000 to cover the costs associated with the production of the 2 to 3 videos for the website that the commission heard about a couple of months ago and offered their support. But then contingencies. So commission policy provides that 10% of total expenditures be set aside for contingencies, quote, unless the commission deems a different amount appropriate. For this fiscal year, the commission deemed 5% to be appropriate. This, of course, lowers the amount of revenue that we need to seek from our funding agencies. So staff is recommending that the commission adopt 5% contingency for next fiscal year of $46,392. So this is just the total. You'll see as adjusted currently $903,892. Proposed $974,242, an increase of $70,350, which represents a 7.8% increase over the current fiscal year. Now we'll move on to financing sources for next fiscal year. Again, these are fund balance, miscellaneous revenue, and revenue from other agencies. We'll start off with the appropriation of fund balance. As I mentioned, we are looking at a projected fund balance for this fiscal year of $60,742. We are recommending that the commission appropriate $100,000 in fund balance to fund next fiscal year. So if you look at the column to the right, that shows all of the fund balance and where it will be assigned essentially. So the zero reflects $100,000 being spent from current fund balance. The second line there, the committed litigation, that's under commission policies that the commission is required to set aside $100,000 to cover any potential litigation costs. Regarding the unassigned fund balance, the commission has a policy that there should be at least 60 days working capital in that unassigned balance. So this would provide for $162,374 at the end of next fiscal year, with a total unassigned at the end of next fiscal year of $173,327. So at the end of next fiscal year, we're looking at $435,701 in total fund balance, and that includes if we allocate the $100,000 or appropriate it for next year. Regarding miscellaneous revenue, again, interest earnings and fees. The adopted budget was $1,500 for interest earnings and application fees of $6,000. As I mentioned, we are projecting $8,000 in interest earnings and $20,000 in application fees. However, we are proposing an increase in anticipated interest earnings to $5,000, but we are recommending that the anticipated revenue from application fees remain at $6,000. And that's because we just don't know how many applications we're going to receive or the complexity of the ones that we do. So staff tends to recommend that we keep that anticipated revenue on the lower end. And of course, other governmental agencies, they make up the overwhelming majority of our revenue. As I mentioned, they are the County of Ventura, the cities, and then the independent special districts. For the current budget, it was $256,464 for each of these three groups, for a total of $769,392. We are proposing an increase of $287,747 for each group. That's an increase of $31,283 or 12.2%. So overall, the increase total is $93,850, but again, as I mentioned, that's divided three ways. And this is just a summation of what I just mentioned about revenues. The adopted is $903,892. We are projecting to receive $863,650 this year. However, we are recommending a proposed budget of $974,242, which is an increase of just over $70,000. And with that, our recommendation is that the commission adopt the resolution attached to the staff report approving the proposed budget for fiscal year 23-24. Thank you.
I have a question for Kai.
Commissioner Hassan.
Budget is something that I'd like to know a little bit more. You have those contingencies. What are contingencies and what are unassigned and assigned things that you're talking about? And where does the reserve come into? I'm familiar with the word reserve, not those. So explain it to me. I don't get it.
Well, contingencies are set aside for any unforeseen costs that might arise during the fiscal year. For instance, this fiscal year, the general salary increases that were approved in December by the board and became effective in December, those were not anticipated last year. So the commission used a portion of contingencies to cover that shortfall in salaries and benefits. The fund balance is essentially just money that the commission has that's over and above what's necessary to fund operations and then what's necessary to set aside under the litigation account under the 60 days. So that's just the remaining fund balance, and that can always be used essentially as a reserve for the commission if necessary. I hope that answers your question.
Other questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to commend Kai and staff for an excellent budget. You know, it's a very conservative budget, you know, and I've been with LAFCO, Madam Chair, and commissioners for many, many years, and you're always very, very conservative, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and your staff.
Any other questions from commissioners before I take the public comment? Yes.
I've got one. So just for everyone's edification relating to the fund balance, if there was a scenario someday where the fund balance was zero, we would then fill that void with increasing the fees due from the cities, special districts, and the county to fill that, to complete the budget, basically?
Well, as far as the fund balance goes, what the plan is we're slowly drawing down the unassigned fund balance. We're using that to fund operations every year. That's why the costs to the funding agencies are going up essentially proportionately. The kind of goal, although it's not really a goal, is to draw down that unassigned fund balance as much as possible and only have enough reserves to fund the 60 days, to fund the litigation account, and to fund contingencies.
Right.
And we're only doing that because the commission has no policies to keep any unassigned fund balance. And that may be something that the commission may want to consider, to have maybe a little bit of fund balance left before it's all drawn down. That's something I can actually talk about or consider. But as of now, there's no policy that applies to that.
So that was one of my questions, unless someone else had a question.
No, I just want to share, you know, I think it's important that we be more conservative and make sure that we have sufficient funds in there, because you never know when we're going to need that funding. So I think that, in fact, is really 60 days enough? Should it be 90 days? I know, it's something that we ought to look at, just something to think about. Thank you.
Did you have a question, Commissioner Avila?
Yeah, I did. I'm just curious, could you remind me how it's broken down on how, well, I guess it's based off of revenue, the allocation for each special district, cities or county, right? So, I mean, I'm looking here at Calleguas, and we're second highest, right next to the county at 115,000 a year. I mean, is our breakdown fair? Because I mean, between the county and Calleguas, we're paying the brunt of the whole county.
Yeah, and that's been brought up several times over the years by, Callegas board members sitting on the commission. It's, the reason Callegas has so much revenue is because of all of the fees going through it to Metropolitan. Even though those are pass-through fees, they're considered by the state to be revenue, and that's why Callegas has such a large portion of the revenue. The state law provides this mechanism. There is a provision in state law that does allow the special districts to get together and come up with a different way of allocating, the funds to LAFCO, with the idea of perhaps reducing that to Callegas. But then that, of course, is going to result in an increase to all the other districts.
Yeah, I don't know that, that everyone else would be willing to do that, but, just, considering that our revenue is really just pass-through fees, we collect it, pass it on, it's just, it doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, and the only way around that would be to change the law.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I wanted to go back real quick to the fund balance issue. I think it might be a good idea to have a future conversation about that and how much should be in there as opposed to drawing it all the way down. Because my concern as I was looking at it is, okay, we're filling it in with 100,000. Last year it was 127. At some point, that's going to be zero, and then that next year could be a really big jump for all of the people that are paying into it. And so it might not be a bad idea to kind of look at what point, what is it projected to be next year? How long have we been doing it? And at what point do we need to cushion the blow so that we don't end up with a huge jump to everyone who's paying into it? Yeah, so that we can sort of taper that off a little bit. And so that might be worth a future conversation.
Okay, I can maybe have some conversations with the Auditor Controller's Office. I can maybe talk to some other LAFCOs and see what their policies are, and hopefully have something for you at the next meeting when the final budget is considered.
Would that be the appropriate time to have that discussion, or are we is it almost too late to make a difference this year, but schedule it for something ahead of time?
Future.
For the future budget review?
Yeah, I would recommend we do it in the future. I can have that information for the next, since we'll be talking about the budget, it might be an appropriate time to discuss, other policies. But yeah, I would recommend that any future policy changes happen for or the following fiscal year.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense, just to make sure that we're looking at it before next year's budget cycle.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, I have another question. So kind of along the Callegas question, I was asked by the city, I received a email last night from the city of Santa Paula requesting that I ask that before the final budget is adopted, that we look at the methodology just to make sure that it really is accurate, that Santa Paula's contribution doubled from last year. And so I assume we probably don't have an answer for why that happened for today, but they just asked that we would look at that before the final budget is adopted.
Well, it's the Auditor Controller's Office figures this out for us, for the commission, and it's based on revenue. So if there's fluctuations in revenue to each of the cities, then that's going to change the allocation. So if there was a significant increase in Santa Paula's revenue compared to the prior year, then there's going to be an increase in the allocation. There's going to be an increase in the proportion that Santa Paula pays of that total to LAFCO. Consequently, if there's a decrease in the revenue from another city, that's going to have to be compensated by increases from the other cities that didn't have a significant decrease. So I hope that answers your question. It's laid out in LAFCO law, the process,
Okay.
and it can't be changed.
So the auditor controller gave you the amounts for each city?
Yes, we will provide our proposed budget to the auditor controller, so we determine how much revenue is going to be necessary from each of the funding agencies. Then they use those figures to determine the allocations for each of the agencies.
So I guess the city would take issue with the auditor controller's figures between now and the final budget. If there's a contest between the city's figures internally and the auditor controller's numbers.
And, well, that would be an option. I think what the city can do is just verify that the income amounts that were provided from the state to the auditor controller's office were accurate.
And so where would they go to get
That,
those figures?
yeah.
I just
forget-
want to know what to tell them when I,
Sure. And, you know, I'd be happy to talk to the city manager. Yeah, absolutely.
okay, I'll direct staff
Okay.
that they can, or let staff know that they can speak with you to, because I didn't figure we would resolve the reason for why, but they were asking me how the numbers could have doubled, and I'm like, I don't know. So I figure you all can speak with them. I'll connect you with them.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, I will close the public hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move staff's recommendation.
So moved.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the budget? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And with that, it brings us to correspondence received. And was this the item where there was additional correspondence received?
Yes, you should have received a memo with an attached letter last week, or earlier this week, from Teresa Jordan commenting on the comment letter.
All right. So would someone like to make a motion to receive and file the correspondence?
So moved.
We have, right? So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I didn't catch the second, please.
Ross?
Commissioner Ross.
Thank you.
Sorry. And any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Executive Director's report.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Crosswhite. With that, there's a staff report with anticipated future agenda items. We are still working on the sphere reviews for the cemetery districts, Harbor District, and Port District. Again, we're kind of ramping that back up after having been delayed. I actually met with the Bardsdale General Manager and a member of their board out at the cemetery 2 weeks ago, had a really positive discussion. So very nice to hear that they're doing well. And I anticipate meeting with the other cemetery districts here in the next week or two. I made a presentation to the City of Oxnard City Council, giving them a kind of a LAFCO 101, an overview of LAFCO. It was a lot of great questions, a lot of great discussions that came out of that. Staff is going to be at the staff workshop, the Cal LAFCO staff workshop. We're going to be leaving Tuesday, driving up to Murphy's, and we'll be returning Friday. The offices will, of course, be closed during that time. We'll put notification on the website, on the door, and we will be checking our email and phone messages while we're gone. So it's not like we won't be around and following up if necessary. So that's really all I have.
Okay. Any questions on the Executive Director's report?
No.
If not, I would accept a motion to receive and file.
So move.
Motion by Zaragoza, second by
Second.
Hassan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Commissioner comments.
Madam Chair, I just want to commend Kai for making an excellent presentation to our Oxnard City Council on LAFCO 101. I was really surprised, our council members are really surprised how LAFCO works, and talked about annexations and talked about other issues that we have here, and it was really well received by our staff and also our council members. So excellent job. I just want to commend you for that. And I recommend it to other councils, too. The LAFCO 101 and the slide presentations mean a lot, you did a really, really good job, so
Thank you.
I'd like to commend you for that.
Great, thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.